The planet didn't have a name. Not one anyone dared to use. In the galactic archive, it existed only as a warning, cold, precise, and final. DX 9987, Deathworld classification, extreme. Atmosphere, unstable. Toxic fluctuations every 3.7 hours. Gravity, 1.4 standard. Surface, volcanic plates, acidic oceans, electromagnetic storms. Native life, hyper-aggressive apex predators. Survival probability, 0.003%. It was not a world. It was a sentence. Commander Threx had overseen dozens of prisoner deployments across the outer sectors, but even he hesitated as the transport ships aligned above the churning gray sphere. Below, lightning carved the sky apart in constant, violent flashes. Entire continents shifted under volcanic pressure. Something massive moved beneath the clouds, too large to classify, too fast to track. "This is excessive," Threx muttered. Beside him, the Dominion Overseer remained unmoved. "Efficiency is not cruelty, Commander. It is order." Threx said nothing. He'd learned long ago that arguing with the Overseers was like arguing with gravity. Pointless. The prisoners were released without ceremony. Drop pods streaked through the atmosphere like falling stars, each one carrying beings from a dozen conquered species, war criminals, rebels, dissidents. Disposable lives. The sensors tracked them for exactly 4 minutes after impact. Then, nothing. No movement. No signals. No survivors. "Deployment successful," the Overseer said. Threx stared at the blank display. Successful. That was one word for it. Days passed. Then weeks. DX 9987 returned to silence, as it always did. Until the signal came. It slipped through the outer comm array like a glitch, weak, distorted, barely detectable. "Commander, we're receiving something," the comm officer said. Threx turned sharply. "From where?" The pause. "Surface." That wasn't possible. No transmission equipment had been sent with the prisoners. Even if it had, nothing could survive long enough to use it. "Put it on screen." The image flickered into existence. Grainy. Shaking. Half obscured by interference. At first, Threx thought it was just static. Then the figure moved. Bipedal. Medium height. Covered in what looked like layers of torn material and hardened residue, blood, maybe, or something worse. Behind it, the landscape stretched out in ruin. Jagged stone, smoking craters, and the broken bodies of creatures that defied biology. One of them alone could have destroyed an armored unit. There were dozens. All dead. The figure stepped closer. Its face came into view. 2 forward-facing eyes. Focused. "Where?" "Identify the species," Threx demanded. The science officer scanned rapidly, fingers trembling. "No match in the archive." "That's impossible." Running deeper analysis, skeletal structure unfamiliar, muscular density above baseline. "Commander." "What?" The officer looked up slowly. "This thing shouldn't exist." On screen, the figure reached down and picked something up, a shattered piece of metal, still sparking. A Dominion comm unit. From the retrieval squad. Threx felt a chill crawl along his spine. "When did we send a retrieval team?" "We didn't," the officer said. The realization hit all at once. Something had come down. And it hadn't come back. The figure examined the device, turning it over in its hands like a puzzle. Then it looked directly into the camera. And smiled. The expression wasn't aggressive. It wasn't hostile. It was worse. It was tired. A moment later, the audio cleared just enough to carry a voice. "Yeah," the figure said, exhaling slowly. "We're gonna need a pickup." Silence filled the bridge. No one moved. No one spoke. Threx leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen. "Zoom out." The camera adjusted. More shapes appeared in the background. More figures. Moving. Working. There were others. Some dragged the carcass of a massive creature toward a makeshift structure. Others reinforced barriers using bones and metal scraps. One stood watch, scanning the horizon with something sharp and reflective in hand. They weren't just alive. They were organized. How many? Threx asked quietly. The science officer ran the scan again. Multiple heat signatures. At least a dozen. Possibly more underground. Underground. There are tunnel systems, they've modified them. Modified. On DX 9987. That's not survival, one of the officers whispered. That's adaptation. On screen, one of the figures collapsed briefly, clutching its side. Another rushed over, not in panic, but with practiced efficiency. It pressed something against the wound, tightened a binding, pulled the injured one back to its feet. No hesitation. No fear. Threx felt it then. A shift. Something deep and instinctive. Commander, the comm officer said slowly. The signal, it's strengthening. The figure stepped closer again, adjusting the device. The image sharpened. The audio cleared. This time, there was no distortion. You guys in orbit? The figure asked, voice steady. The pause. Then a small, humorless chuckle. Figures. It wiped something from its face, blood, dirt, maybe both. Then leaned slightly toward the camera. You dropped us on a death world, it said. Another pause. We figured out how to live. Behind it, one of the creatures twitched. Not dead. Not yet. The figure didn't turn. Didn't react. It simply reached back and ended it. Effortlessly. Then it looked forward again. Eyes sharp now. Focused. Question is, it said quietly, are you gonna help? The beat? Or are we gonna come up there and ask ourselves? The transmission cut. On the bridge, no one spoke. No one breathed. Commander Threx slowly leaned back, staring at the empty screen. Prepare another shuttle, he said. This time, his voice wasn't confident. And arm it. The shuttle burned through the atmosphere like a falling blade. From orbit, Commander Threx watched every second of its descent, his claws clenched tightly behind his back. The storm activity over DX 9987 was worse than before, lightning splitting the sky in violent sheets, ash clouds choking visibility, seismic readings spiking across multiple continents. It was as if the planet itself had grown restless. Or where? Descent stable, the pilot reported over comms. Entering lower atmosphere. Visibility near zero. Maintain telemetry, Threx ordered. Do not lose that feed. This time, they were prepared. The shuttle was reinforced, triple-layered hull, adaptive shielding, automated defense turrets tracking anything that moved. Inside, a squad of Dominion soldiers stood ready, armed with plasma rifles calibrated to maximum yield. Elite. The best the Dominion could send. Touchdown in 30 seconds, the pilot said. A long pause followed. Something's moving. The external cameras flickered, struggling against interference. At first, it was just shifting shadows in the storm. Then one of them lunged. The impact slammed into the shuttle with enough force to shake it off balance. Alarms blared instantly. Contact. Large life form, unknown classification. The creature clung to the hull, its limbs digging into the metal as if it were soft clay. Serrated appendages hammered against the cockpit shield, each strike sending cracks spidering across the reinforced glass. Open fire, the squad leader shouted. The turrets activated. A burst of plasma tore the creature apart. Its body fell away into the storm. Silence. Status. Threx demanded. Minor hull damage. We're holding, the pilot replied. A nervous laugh crackled over the comms. Guess that's what they meant by Deathworld. Then the ground rose up. Something massive surged from beneath the landing zone. An enormous, armored beast with a maw that split open into layers of rotating, bone-like blades. The shuttle didn't even have time to lift. The creature struck. Metal screamed. The hull bent inward. The feed dissolved into static. Signal lost, the comm officer whispered. No one spoke for several seconds. Reacquiring secondary channels, the officer said quickly. We're picking up surface-level transmissions, fragmented. Put it through. The screen flickered back to life. But this time, it wasn't the shuttle. It was ground level. The camera was tilted, partially buried in debris. Smoke filled the air. The sound of distant thunder echoed across the landscape. And something else. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Unhurried. A figure stepped into view. The same one. The human. It looked worse than before. More blood, more damage, clothing torn almost beyond recognition. A deep gash ran across its shoulder, still bleeding. And yet, it stood straight. Unshaken. Behind it, the wreckage of the shuttle smoldered. And around it, the remains of the creatures. Not one. Not two. Dozens. The massive burrowing beast lay split open, its armored plates torn apart from the inside. Smaller predators lay scattered across the ground, their bodies broken, crushed, or pierced with improvised weapons. "What did this?" one of the officers whispered. The human bent down, picking up the damaged comm unit. Turned it over. Tapped it twice. The feed stabilized. It looked directly at them again. "You guys really don't listen, do you?" it said, voice rough but steady. A faint smirk touched its lips. "We said we needed a pickup." It gestured vaguely behind it. Not whatever that was. Threx felt something cold settle in his chest. "Where is the squad?" he demanded. The human tilted its head slightly, as if considering the question, then shrugged. They didn't last long. The pause. Not built for this place. Behind the human, movement caught the camera's edge. More figures stepped into view. Other humans. Some carried pieces of the fallen shuttle, metal panels, wiring, components stripped with precision. Others dragged the carcasses of creatures, their movements efficient, practiced. One of them glanced at the camera, raised a hand. Not in greeting. In acknowledgement. "They're working together," the science officer whispered. "Coordinated." "No," Threx said quietly. "Experienced." On screen, one of the humans approached the speaker, holding a crude weapon fashioned from bone and sharpened alloy. It spoke briefly, too low to hear. The first human nodded, then turned back to the camera. "Look," it said, tone shifting slightly. "Less humor now. More edge. You dropped a bunch of us here. Different people. Different backgrounds." It paused. "But this place." It gestured outward toward the storm, the corpses, the chaos. "It doesn't care who you are." Another pause. "So we learned fast." Behind it, one of the creatures twitched again, still alive, barely. Without even looking, another human stepped forward and drove a jagged blade into its skull. Efficient. No hesitation. The first human continued, as if nothing had happened. "We adapted." It leaned closer to the camera. And now, for the first time, there was something unmistakable in its eyes. Not just survival. Confidence. "You've got a choice." Silence filled the bridge. Every officer stood frozen. "Send a real extraction," the human said. "The beat. Or stop sending things down here." Its gaze hardened. "Because whatever you send next." A faint smile returned. "We're keeping it." The transmission cut again. On the bridge, the silence was heavier this time. Commander Threx didn't look away from the dark screen. "Scan the surface," he said slowly. The results came in seconds later. Multiple structures confirmed. Heat signatures increasing. Weaponized materials detected. The officer hesitated. "Commander." "What?" "They're expanding." Threx closed his eyes briefly. This wasn't containment. This wasn't survival. This was something else. When he opened them again, his voice was quieter than before. "They're learning." The Galactic Council convened within the hour. No delays. No ceremony. No politics. Just fear, thinly disguised as authority. Commander Threx stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by towering figures of the Dominion's ruling species. Their forms varied, some armored in natural plating, others cloaked in shimmering fields of energy, but their expressions were the same. Cold. Calculating. Uneasy. "You're certain of this?" one of the elders asked. Threx didn't hesitate. "Yes." A flick of his claw activated the holo display. The footage replayed, again. The humans standing in the storm. The wrecked shuttle. The carcasses of creatures once classified as unstoppable. And the words, "We're keeping it." A ripple of tension moved through the chamber. This is not possible, another elder snapped. No species survives DX 9987. That is why it exists. They didn't just survive, Threx replied. They adapted. They scavenged wreckage and killed wildlife, a third voice dismissed. Primitive behavior. Contained. Threx's gaze hardened. They've already begun building infrastructure. Coordinated shelters. Defensive positions. Resource management. The pause. And weapons. That word lingered. Heavy. From scrap, the elder scoffed. Improvised tools are not a threat to a galactic power. Threx stepped forward. Then why are we having this meeting? Silence answered him. Another elder leaned forward, voice lower now. If they leave that planet. They won't, the first interrupted sharply. They can't. Threx didn't speak. Because for the first time, he wasn't sure. The chamber dimmed slightly as the central intelligence projected new data. Surface scans. Movement patterns. Growth projections. They are increasing in number, the system announced. Survival rate among initial prisoners, rising. Cross-species cooperation, confirmed. Technological adaptation, accelerating. A new image appeared. A structure. Not natural. Not accidental. Built. Walls reinforced with bone and metal. Elevated platforms. Observation points. Defensive design. They are fortifying, the system continued. They are preparing. For what? One elder demanded. Threx answered before the system could. For whatever comes next. That was when the decision was made. Not through consensus. Not through logic. Through fear. Contain the species. The words echoed across the chamber like a sentence. They are to be eliminated before they become a larger threat. Threx's head snapped up. Eliminated? They've shown no aggression beyond. They destroyed 2 Dominion vessels. They were attacked first. It doesn't matter. The final elder spoke. Ancient. Unyielding. If a species can thrive on a death world, it will not remain there. The pause. And if it leaves? No one finished the thought. They didn't need to. Orbital bombardment authorized, the elder declared. Threx felt something twist inside him. This is a mistake. No one responded. The order had already been given. The first strike came at dawn. From orbit, it looked like precision. Controlled. Beams of concentrated energy lanced through the atmosphere, striking the surface with surgical accuracy. Entire regions erupted in fire and shockwaves, the ground itself splitting under the force. Targeting confirmed, the weapons officer reported. Primary human settlements engaged. Threx watched in silence. This should have ended it. No species, no matter how resilient, could survive that. Scanning for life signs, the science officer said. The pause. Decreasing. Another pause. Longer this time. Wait. Threx leaned forward. What is it? The officer's voice faltered. They're moving. Clarify. Heat signatures are dispersing rapidly. They're not dying, they're relocating. The display shifted. Thermal imaging lit up the surface. Human figures, dozens of them, scattered across the terrain. Not randomly. Strategically. They're predicting the strikes, the officer said. They're what? They're moving before impact. Another scan updated. Some of the humans had vanished entirely. Where did they go? Underground. The display zoomed in. Tunnel networks. Expanded. Reinforced. Engineered. They built this, one officer whispered. In less than a planetary cycle, another added. Threx didn't answer. Because something else had caught his attention. Movement. Not away from the blasts. Toward them. What are they doing? The weapons officer asked. A group of humans sprinted across the scorched terrain, heading directly for a recently impacted zone. That area is still unstable, radiation levels. They don't care, Threx said quietly. The humans reached the crater. Doven. Moments later, they emerged, dragging something with them. A broken Dominion artillery drone. The officer's voice dropped to a whisper. They're salvaging it. Threx's pulse slowed. No, he said. They're studying it. The bombardment continued. Hours passed. Strike after strike. And yet, the life signs didn't disappear. They changed. Adapted. Survived. Then the next scan came in. And everything stopped. Commander, the science officer said slowly. There's something new. The display shifted again. A structure had appeared. Not crude. Not improvised. Engineered. Built from Dominion technology. Weaponized. Energy readings spiked around it. Unstable. Dangerous. Impossible. They've integrated our systems, the officer whispered. Threx stared at the image. This wasn't survival anymore. This wasn't adaptation. This was escalation. He turned slowly toward the viewport, toward the storm-covered world below. We didn't contain them, he said. No one spoke. Because they already knew what he was going to say next. Threx's voice dropped to a near whisper. We trained them. The bombardment stopped on the 4th day. Not because the council ordered it. Because something changed. Energy spike detected from surface, the science officer reported, voice tight. Origin, former impact zone, coordinates locked. Commander Threx didn't move. Magnitude? The pause. Increasing. The display shifted to a focus scan. At first, it looked like nothing, just heat distortion rising from the scorched ground. Then the ground opened. Not naturally. Deliberately. Panels of reinforced material, Dominion alloy, repurposed and reshaped, slid apart, revealing something buried beneath the surface. Something built. That structure wasn't there yesterday, one officer said. No, Threx replied quietly. Yesterday, it wasn't finished. Power readings surged. Unstable. Chaotic. And yet, controlled. What is it? The weapons officer asked. Threx didn't answer. Because he already knew. Track the output vector, he ordered instead. The system calculated rapidly. Then froze. Commander. What? It's aiming at us. Silence fell across the bridge. That's not possible, someone whispered. They don't have orbital range capability. They didn't, Threx corrected. Until now. The surface glowed. A line of blinding energy carved upward through the atmosphere. And struck. The first ship didn't even have time to react. The beam tore through its lower hull, ripping past shielding as if it wasn't there. For a split second, the vessel hung in place, caught between systems trying to compensate and physics refusing to cooperate. Then it came apart. The explosion lit up the planet below. Fragments scattered like falling stars, burning as they re-entered the atmosphere they had once ruled from above. Impact confirmed. The comm officer shouted. We've lost the V-7. No, another officer breathed. That was a command vessel. Threx's eyes remained locked on the surface. Track the source again. It's recharging, the science officer said. Energy buildup repeating, faster this time. How fast? Minutes. Panic began to ripple across the fleet. Ships shifted position, breaking formation instinctively. Shields flared to maximum output. Defensive protocols activated across every vessel in orbit. They shouldn't be able to do this, the weapons officer said. They shouldn't be able to survive that planet, Threx replied. Another surge of energy pulsed from the surface. Second strike incoming. This time, the fleet tried to evade. It didn't matter. The beams split mid-ascent, fragmenting into multiple arcs, each one adjusting trajectory with terrifying precision. They're targeting individual systems, someone shouted. Engines. Weapons arrays. Communication relays. Every strike was deliberate. Every hit, calculated. A cruiser lost its engines and began to drift. Another ship's weapons system detonated from within. A third went silent entirely, its communications wiped out in an instant. They're not just firing blindly, the science officer said, voice shaking. They're choosing targets. No, Threx said slowly. They're learning priorities. The realization hit harder than any weapon. This wasn't a lucky strike. It was strategy. Commander. The comm officer whispered. We're receiving a transmission. Threx didn't look away from the chaos outside. Put it through. The main display flickered. Then stabilized. The human appeared again. Same one. More worn now. More scars. More weight behind its eyes. But still standing. Still calm. You guys really don't quit, do you? It said. Behind it, the structure loomed. Part machine, part improvised nightmare. Energy pulsed through it in uneven rhythms, barely contained by its own construction. Other humans moved around it, adjusting components, reinforcing sections, watching the sky. Working. Together. You dropped us here, the human continued. You tried to wipe us out. The pause. Didn't work. On the bridge, no one spoke. Because there was nothing to say. You know what this place does? The human asked. It gestured to the storm, the burning sky, the shattered land. It doesn't kill you. Another pause. It teaches you. Threx felt something tighten in his chest. The human leaned slightly closer to the camera. And you've been very helpful teachers. Behind it, the weapon pulsed again. Charging. Stand down, Threx said suddenly. Every officer turned toward him. Commander? Pull the fleet back, he ordered. That's not a retreat, that's survival, Threx snapped. Silence. Because they all understood now. Too late. They've learned enough, Threx said quietly. And we've shown them everything else. Another energy surge lit up the surface. The weapon was ready again. Threx looked at the human on the screen. For the first time, he didn't see a survivor. He didn't see a primitive. He saw something far more dangerous. Something inevitable. You started this, the human said. The pause. We just adapted. Its expression didn't change. Didn't need to. Now, it said softly, we're getting better. The transmission cut. A second later, the sky burned again. The fleet broke formation. Not in strategy. In fear. Retreat vectors collapsing. The navigation officer shouted. Multiple ships are off course. Guidance systems failing. Reroute manually. Another yelled. We're trying. Controls aren't responding. Commander Threx stood motionless at the center of the chaos. Outside the viewport, the void of space had become something unrecognizable. Ships drifted. Some burning. Some silent. Some turning slowly, as if something unseen had taken hold of them. Status report, Threx said, voice low but cutting through the panic. The responses came in fragments. Communications are being jammed. No, overridden. Weapon systems are cycling without command input. Navigation grids are changing. The pause. Commander, they're rewriting them. Threx closed his eyes for a brief moment. Of course they were. Source, he asked. The answer came immediately. Surface. It started with the signals. Small at first. Almost harmless. Fragments of code embedded within the fleet's own systems. Riding along captured transmissions, hidden inside scrambled feedback loops. No one noticed. Until it was too late. They're using our own protocols against us, the systems officer said, voice barely steady. They've mapped our architecture, every layer, every failsafe. How? Someone demanded. Threx opened his eyes again. Because we showed them, he said quietly. On the surface, the humans worked. The weapon that had once been crude and unstable was now something else entirely. Refined. Multiple structures now dotted the scorched landscape, each one feeding into the next, forming a network of power, signal, and control. A system. A growing one. They're not just building weapons, the science officer whispered, watching the feeds in horror. They're building infrastructure. Another ship went dark. No explosion. No visible damage. It simply stopped. Moments later, it turned. Slowly. Then accelerated, straight into another vessel. The collision tore both ships apart. They've taken control of it, the comm officer shouted. Override, someone screamed. We can't, there's nothing left to override. Threx stepped forward, gripping the console tightly. Open a direct channel, he said. Commander? Now. The officer hesitated only a second before complying. Channel open. Static filled the line. It cleared. The human appeared again. Closer this time. Clear. And not alone. Others stood behind it. Different faces, different scars, but the same expression in all of them. Focused. Unshaken. Evolving. You're learning, Threx said. It wasn't a question. The human tilted its head slightly. Took a while, it admitted. A faint smile. Rough start. Behind it, one of the structures pulsed again. Lines of energy flowing between nodes, forming patterns that mirrored Dominion command networks. Only faster. Cleaner. Better. You've made your point, Threx continued. Withdraw your attacks and we will. The human raised a hand. Not aggressively. Just enough to stop him. You still don't get it, it said. The smile faded. We're not attacking you. The pause. We're surviving you. On the bridge, another explosion rocked the fleet. A carrier-class vessel erupted in a chain reaction, its own reactors turning against it. Debris slammed into nearby ships. Formation shattered completely. You dropped us on a death world, the human continued. You bombed us. Another pause. You sent machines. Soldiers. Fire from the sky. Its eyes didn't leave the camera. So we adapted. Threx felt it then. The shift. Not in the battle. In understanding. This doesn't stop here, he said quietly. It wasn't a threat. It was recognition. The human nodded once. No, it agreed. It doesn't. Behind it, something new came online. Not a weapon. Not exactly. A signal. Commander, the comm officer shouted. We're detecting transmissions, multiple vectors, spreading beyond this system. Where? Threx demanded. Everywhere. The display lit up. Dozens of signals. Then hundreds. Jumping from relay to relay. System to system. Unstoppable. They're not just fighting us, the science officer whispered. They're reaching out. To who? Someone asked. The human answered. To anyone who survives, it said. Silence. You think this place made us monsters, the human continued. A faint shake of its head. It didn't. It leaned closer. It made us better. Another explosion tore through the fleet. This time closer. The bridge lights flickered. Warning systems screamed. Threx stood still. Watching. Understanding. You wanted to know what we are, the human said. Threx didn't respond. He already knew. The human's voice dropped, quieter now. But here's the part you missed. The pause. This. It gestured around, toward the storm, the machines, the war. This is us holding back. The transmission cut. Seconds later, the first human-controlled ship entered orbit. Not stolen. Not salvaged. Built. And it wasn't alone. Across the stars, more signals lit up. More ships responded. More systems awakened. The galactic archive updated in real time. Planet, Earth, classification, Deathworld, extreme. Dominant species, human. The pause. Then a final line appeared. Threat level, worse. Commander Threx stared at the expanding web of human signals, spreading like fire through dry space. Not chaotic. Not random. Purposeful. He exhaled slowly. They didn't escape the death world, he said. No one answered. Because they all saw it now. They brought it with them, fire,